So, hello, I am Stephen. I work for the Jesuits. I'm not a Jesuit. They don't have shirts as good as this one. And I travel around the country to different universities especially, and I lead retreats for students and staff and friends of chaplaincy. Retreats in daily life, also known as weeks of guided prayer, are just a wonderful way of bringing the retreat experience to people where they are. You don't have to go away to a residential centre for this. The retreat comes to you, it's accessible, it's inexpensive, and however busy you are, we will find a way of making it work. God knows how busy you are and is able to do interesting things with half an hour of prayer every day and a meeting with a prayer guide.
Before the retreat began, I wasn't really sure what to expect at all. It was my first retreat and it was my first year in Oxford, and I didn't really know anyone, and I was still finding my feet, and I also hadn't really found my home in a church at that point. But just walking up the slightly rickety stairs and then opening the door and just seeing Alex, my spiritual director, sat in the armchair and beckoning me to sit down and talk about everything that God was doing for me and the ways he might be speaking to me was wonderful.
So what happens on these retreats?
So we started the week of guided prayer on the
Sunday evening. We all met.
We have an opening meeting
for all the retreatants and the guides.
where we pray, we come together.
Getting to know one another.
And then you meet your prayer guide.
It was good just to meet as a group, to have the sense of community.
Steve, you were teaching us to sing very gloriously.
Each of the retreatants commits to praying for half an hour every day. If they want to do more, we won't stop them unless they have an essay to hand in and they're avoiding it.
And also half an hour speaking to our prayer guides.
Each day of the week.
Which was at a point in the day suited to when we were free.
And it's especially in the prayer and that individual meeting with a guide that the stuff really happens.
There was also the option to attend workshops on discernment.
Ways of praying.
Images of God.
They're a really nourishing part of the experience.
So there is that teaching element, because we have a closing meeting at the end with more prayer, looking back at the week.
You gather, you share what the week's been like, and we thank God for the grace it's received.
And it was really beautiful because we had the opportunity of sharing with the whole group, different people from different ages, and tell them our experiences.
So I had my time of imaginative prayer in the chapel, and I was exploring this scene of a Christ-like figure who was very personally devout, and this imagery involved them sort of walking off into a quiet place to pray, which all sounds very glorious. But part of the theme of the prayer was also they were getting further away from their neighbour. And I thought this was a very mysterious and attractive experience of prayer, so I told my prayer guide about it, and he wanted me to discern what the fruits of that experience were. And I think there was a realization that there was a harsh energy to some of that spiritual experience, that it wasn't actually helping me to love my neighbour and connect with the community. It was quite isolating and harsh. So for me, it was a plot twist moment, and the prayer guide helped me to see that.
The first time I did the week of guided prayer, the thing that stood out to me most was one particular imaginative contemplation, where I was picturing Jesus on the shore of a lake, people listening to him, disciples coming in with fishing boats, and just noticing that I was standing quite far away from where he was, and he turned to look towards me, but there wasn't much personal connection. And this was something my guide picked up on, something that I wouldn't have noticed otherwise, I think. And that was really the start of a whole new encounter and relationship for me.
What do I love most about these retreats? I think what I love most is what Jesus also loves most about them. He shows up and he does the same things he was doing in the first century. He meets people, he encounters them, he shows them who he is, he looks at them with love, he forgives, he heals, he inspires, he calls. He absolutely loves doing that, and I love watching him do it. That's what I love most, seeing people encounter Jesus. there are other things. I love the way these retreats bring people together. So a community that maybe didn't know each other so well beforehand, maybe even an ecumenical community, they come together during the week as they get closer to God's love. I also love that we have this wonderful group of generous prayer guides who use their love and their skill to help others get closer to God.
One expectation was to become closer to God, knowing that He's with me always, not only when I'm praying in the chapel, but when I'm living my daily life in any activity, remembering that He's with me, that I'm walking with Him. So this week taught me that. And then also many other gifts. After each prayer, what I do is to write down all the experiences that I had from that day. Then when I meet with my prayer guide, I could share like everything that I've heard from God. So that helped me a lot. And it has helped me until now, because if I'm struggling or if I have some doubts or questions, I go back to my journal and, oh, this happened. The answer comes, so that has been really, really helpful for me.